Hey, Chandler Bolt here, and in this video I want to walk you through my goal setting process. So really I'm going to go all the way from how I set yearly goals to how I set quarterly goals to how I set monthly to weekly to daily, and my goal in this video is to kind of provide a practical application of, okay, how you can set your goals for the year, but then execute on that all the way down to your daily side of things. So first things first, I'm going to start with a yearly and I'm going to kind of work my way down. So for yearly, there's really three main things that I do in my planning every December, so towards the end of December while I'm planning for the next year. Number one is I create my top 3 goals for the entire year. Number 2 is I set my intention for the year. And then number 3, I come up with top 20 people in my life that I want to invest more time with or spend more time. So who are the relationships that I want to deepen in this year? So as far as the intention goes, that's oftentimes what's like the main thing that I want to learn this year, an experience or something I need to solve. So I'll give you a couple examples here. So a couple years ago, I bought out my business partner. And after going through this entire process, I found that my confidence was very low and I wasn't very decisive. So it was a whole year. My intention was confidence and decisiveness, right? And then last year, I realized that I was not a very good leader. So I spent all year focused on leadership. Right, and so I read all kinds of books. That was the area of my life that I was trying to grow. And then this year, I've really been working on, I'm calling this the year of developing others. So I'm working on and kind of, I try to identify what's the key bottleneck that's keeping me from getting where I want to go. And I kind of discovered that it was developing the people around me. I can't be any more productive. I need to develop the people around me. So those are the 3 things I look to for a yearly planning perspective. Top 3 goals, what's my intention, and who are the top 20 people that I want to deepen relationships with. Now there's a couple other things kind of on like kind of the nice to have list. So sometimes I'll do a stop doing list. So what are things I want to stop doing this year? What are things I want to do more of? What were some lessons learned and wins from last year? So when I'm kind of reflecting back over the past year. And then lastly, what are some strengths that I have that I want to foster? Now moving into quarterly, I'll go through this quickly. So this is a process that I do with my team at Self-Publishing School, and we'll kind of set the key thrusts for the year, and then we'll drill down into our key initiatives for the quarter and kind of set company goals for the quarter, and then that drills down into our company goals for the month, and then that drills down into everyone's individual goals for the month. If you want to check out that process, there's a great document called the One-Page Strategic Plan from a book called Scaling Up that I highly recommend. Now let's talk about kind of drilling down into the monthly goals. So I remember my family and I did this challenge. It was called the 100-Day Challenge. So you break down what are the 1 or 2 or maybe 3 goals that you want to accomplish over 100 days. And it was hosted by this guy named Gary Ryan Blair. Now the whole family did it and we set all these goals. And what I figured out was that about the last 30 days was when everyone just blitzed them, right? Because now it was urgent and it was kind of the last minute. So I said, how can I recreate that on a monthly basis? And that's when I started doing monthly goals. Now I'll show you my monthly goal sheet. It looks something like this. So this is very analog, right? So I've got October goals here, and I've got 4 goals. So there's no more than 5 goals. This is very, very important. It needs to be in order of importance. So these goals are listed in order of importance, and I do this every single month. Now, in addition to having these goals and putting them on paper, I have some external accountability. So I actually have an accountability partner, and we have a call every single month for 1 hour. We've got this little spreadsheet. It's all of our goals, and were they green or red? So did we hit them or did we not? And then we've actually upped the ante, and we have a $100 bet for whoever hits the highest percentage of their goals each month. So there's kind of just like, we're both super competitive. So it kind of helps us to hold each other accountable to that and hold ourselves accountable to make sure that we hit them. Now, one thing that's very, very, very important, and I kind of learned this the hard way when I first started setting these goals, is you need to have these goals visible the entire month. The worst thing that can happen is you set these goals, whether it's yearly, monthly, or any of the other ones that I'm going to talk about, and then you just put it away and you don't look at it again, right? So you need to have this visible either on a whiteboard or a piece of paper for the entire month. And one last thing on making bets for your monthly goals. One thing I've seen other people do, or I heard one of my mentors talk about this, is he works with founders. They'll set goals, and he actually makes it where if they don't hit their goals, they have to donate $1,000 or whatever it is to a charity that supports something they hate, which kind of just takes it up a notch. So you can kind of imagine charities that are very for what you're against, and maybe that works too. So that's monthly goals. Now, how do you bring these goals from a monthly level down into a weekly basis? This is via weekly planning sessions. So I do this either, if you want to do this at the end of your Friday, personally, I like doing it on Sunday evening, and then I plan out my entire week. So I'll reflect on my monthly goals. I'll say, where am I at versus where I should be and where I want to be to hit these goals, and what do I need to do this week to hit those goals. So I'll kind of set them up where I'll be looking at my calendar for the week. I'll have my calendar pulled up. I'll have my monthly goals, and I'll say, hey, what are the top 3 or so things that I need to accomplish this week to stay on track for my monthly goals? So I'll fill it out. It'll look something like this. It says this week. I'll start listing out the 3 or 4 things. Then I'll put a number and order these in order of importance. And then if there's like level 2 or lower priority tasks, I'll maybe just list out some of those. But I've got 3 main things that I need to get done for this week. So that's the weekly. Now let's go down into the daily. So how do you daily bring your yearly, quarterly, monthly, weekly, all that stuff down into execution on the day-to-day? Well, how I do that is every night I do a planning session for the next day. So for me personally, I want to finish my workday, go do my thing, have fun, not do work for a while. And then right before I go to bed, I'll spend 10 to 15 minutes to do 2 things. Number 1, I'm going to close loops, as many as I can. And if you don't know what that means, I've got a whole nother video on closing loops that you can check out. And then number 2, I'm going to plan my next day. So I'm going to do exactly what I do kind of for the week, but I'm going to pull up my calendar. And then I'm also going to pull up my weekly goals. And so I'm going to look, what do I have tomorrow? And I'm going to plan out what, in student painters, they call it an hour by hour. So kind of like, what does my day look like? And so I might see, okay, I got this meeting at 11. So before that, I want to finish this thing that's maybe my number 1 priority here. And then after that, and so I'll kind of plan it out and give it kind of this hour by hour. Now, one of the most important things that you can do here is there's no more than 1, 2, maybe 3 priority items, but you got to plan them in the order of their importance. So what's most important here is that you're spending the morning on your highest priority item. So think, okay, my monthly, what's number 1? My weekly, what's number 1? And how do I move that forward in the morning? For me, I call this prime time, right? This is do not disturb time. I'm not doing any meetings. I'm not doing anything but my highest leverage activities, because I know that's when my mind is the sharpest, right? So I'm going straight into it, the very beginning of the day, with my number 1 priority for the day. And you heard me mention in there, that's another kind of boundary that I've set for myself, is I have no meetings in the morning. So the only meeting that I have in the morning is 8 a.m. and that's the daily huddle with my company. And the only reason that's that way is because most of my people are on the East Coast and I'm on the West Coast. So I got to do a little early. But then after that, I'm straight into my day. And the earliest I prefer to have a meeting, this doesn't always happen this way, but the earliest I prefer to have a meeting is 1 p.m. So that prime time is my morning slot, and I can get as much done as possible kind of during that time slot. So that's the daily process. That's what I do every single night, plan out the next day, and then repeat the process all over again the next night. So the last thing I want to touch on here is the importance of identifying bottlenecks or key constraints in your business. And this really relates back to quarterly, monthly, things like that. So sometimes one of the questions I get asked around goal setting, and actually an entrepreneur friend asked me this recently, is how do you prioritize, right? On a monthly basis and on a weekly basis and on a quarterly basis when you've got all this tier 2 stuff that pops up, right? You got all these things that just kind of pop up and they need to get done, but they might not be priority. So for me personally, the way that I do that is I say, okay, what's the lead constraint in my business? What's the bottleneck? Or in the one thing they call it the lead domino. So the one thing such that if we do it, everything else will become easier and unnecessary. And I try to zero in on that, and then I make all my goals around that. And when it comes to daily prioritization, I ruthlessly focus on things that move that needle forward. Right? And if it doesn't move that needle forward, it's not going to get done. Or it's not going to get done right now or early on in my day. And I'm fine. Sometimes it'll piss people off, or I'll let stuff slip through the cracks, or whatever has to happen, or I'll miss an opportunity, which sucks. But I know that I'm doing that because I'm focusing on what's most important. So maybe that's, if you're in the early stage of your business, that's generating revenue. Right? And so that is the key constraint or the key bottleneck. So then for me, when I've been in those types of phases, everything that does not involve generating revenue does not get my time. Right? And maybe it's something else. So that's kind of can help serve as that North Star or that override, if you will, that'll not only help you be more clear on the monthly side of things, but in your weeks. So what do I need to do at the beginning of the week? Or in your days, what tasks are going to kind of get pushed till the end of the day and maybe get pushed till the next day, right? Because they're just not important. They're not in line with your North Star. So there you have it. There's the yearly goal setting process, down to the quarterly, down to the monthly, the weekly, and the daily. And this is how I've found that you can stay aligned with your long-term vision. You know, I've got this other video about long-term vision and short-term focus, right? And how that's important. This is how you execute on that in the day today. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I'd love to hear your comments, especially on this one. What sort of planning process do you have? Do you have a weekly? Do you have a daily, monthly? Is this just something that you do once a year and you forget about it after you make your resolutions or goals or stuff like that at the beginning of the year? What does that look like for you? Maybe it's a little bit different, or what did you learn from this video? Comment below and let me know, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. See ya.